I don't believe it depends on the size at all. Every company, I mean, you don't need to be a big, a multi-billion-dollar corporate, needs to think about how AI will change their business. Let's say there's a lot of buzzwording running around, and I think there are a few positive examples out there, which we know. Now a bit of obviously German focus in the clients I work with. I think they're overwhelmed with what it can do, and they don't know where to get started. Work on the capabilities to be fast to react to the changes. This is what makes you successful, not in predicting what is in 10 years. Get started somewhere, but think about a certain area deeply and transform a certain area. Get started there. Don't do small pilots. Think about a certain process, a certain part of your company that you say, this is I'm gonna do in my AI first world.
Poštovane gledateljice i gledatelji, lijep pozdrav, dobrodošli u novi Forbes Business Unplugged. Ovaj put naša tema je umjetna inteligencija, tema koja je nekako preplavila medije zadnjih godinu, dvije dana, ali mislim da smo našli odličnog sugovornika na tu temu. Moj današnji gost nije iz Hrvatske, moj današnji gost se već 10 godina bavi umjetnom inteligencijom, dok se ona još nije ni zvala umjetna inteligencija. Moj gost je gospodin Tobias Schmidt iz Boston Consulting Groupa. Hello, Mr. Schmidt. Nice to have you here, and thank you for your time.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you.
As I said in my announcement, you are really a guy that can talk a lot about artificial intelligence. We talked before this show that you were in that sector for last 10 years before it was known for broader audience, because in that time it wasn't yet buzzword and something that everybody talked about it. So I will maybe ask you for the starters, how did it look 10 years ago, to talk and to work with artificial intelligence?
Yeah. And I deliberately say always 10 years ago, no one talked about artificial intelligence. Back then it was called advanced analytics, big data. This is when it started to come up, 2015, when large amounts of data were available. Business problems can be solved now with data that was not available at that scale before. So this is how it all got started around, 10 years ago. And the speed in what it evolved was just incredible over those years. You quickly went then into not only looking into static analytics, but also then to say, what if the machine or the algorithm could learn from certain outcomes, right? That's where the logic of machine learning comes from, that evolved then. And then, of course, I would say over the last 2 to 3 years, we saw an exponential growth with all the generative AI technology, which has been an incredible journey so far.
Okay, from your experience, how is now artificial intelligence, let's say, changing the game when we are talking about industry?
Yeah. So when we talk about in industrials, I think there's two elements to this. And I think we need to dissect a bit where and how it changes the game. The one side is, of course, the technology itself evolves super, super fast. Some years ago, we looked into in process industry adjusting the sort of the parameters in different industries with a blink of an eye, right? Self-reactive system. So there's a piece of technology that will fundamentally change how industrials, how process industry, how those will work. The other piece that we are now seeing is an organizational element to this. So how companies and people will work with that technology going forward. And that's two different things, because we always say if the technology is out there, the value will be out there. It's not at all like that. We see exactly the opposite. We see a lot of trials and errors out there, but we'll see barely companies at scale saying how this technology, not only in my core processes, but also in all my support functions, will change the way we operate. How I interact with customers, how I do internal management of my HR, of finance, whatever. All that is not yet at scale happening as we see.
European companies, are they late? When we look at Europe between the West and the East, let's say it like that, was maybe Europe not aware so much? You have enough experience with industry around Europe. Was there a bigger problem in Europe than, let's say, in the United States or in China, for example?
Not a bigger problem. I would say if you look at it as a European, which I tend to like a lot, because obviously to be a bit of the third big, I would say, gravitas and power piece in the world, you might get a bit depressed right now, right? You see all the investments happening mainly, obviously, in the US, and we see all the big large language models, generative AI, come from that space. You see a bit of a geopolitical counterbalance, obviously, in China, right? But if you look at those two, that's where the heavy investment on the technology is happening. We all know that. On the other side, which we looked at as well, and that's why we call it always, there's two races going on. The second race is what you do with the technology. And if we look at the big players here in Europe, or if you compare a US player with a European player, we don't see a big difference of how they apply the technology. So what kind of value they extract, how they change their organization, how they change their processes. That's not the case. We see Europe on par with the rest.
And when we go on the smaller scale, let's say Croatia, for example, the smaller country, what are the benefits of artificial intelligence in the industry for Croatia?
I don't believe it depends on the size at all. Every company, I mean, you don't need to be a big, multi-billion-dollar corporate. I think every company can think about how, and needs to think about how AI will change their business. It can be from how I interact with customers. Will it be a call center in the future doing that? Or and that's a very interesting dynamic we see very recently, will my products be advertised through generative AI? Because people keep asking, not your call center, because they might be biased, or some kind of sales agent that might be biased in a product recommendation. You might ask a large language model, so the artificial intelligence, about what is the best product for my skin? What is the best product if I have, long wavy hair? So they will give you a neutral answer, and they will direct you to the products. And this is something we see right now, which is a disruptive trend, not always seen by many companies.
Okay, this is a question of the people, mainly. That is a question of the owners and managers. And when you are talking with managers, or let's say owners, or smaller companies or bigger companies, how do they react on those quick changes that are happening right now?
Let's say there is a lot of buzzwording running around, and I think there are a few positive examples out there which we know, which understand this dynamic, and which are spearheading kind of also transformation within the larger company. That's definitely out there, very positive examples out there. The majority of the managers, if I now have a bit of obviously German focus in the clients I work with, I think they're overwhelmed with what it can do, and they don't know where to get started. They see this technology and they say, okay, now I can I ask it anything? Will it know it? Is it dangerous? So they are overwhelmed by trying to understand for their function, for their scope, how it will change it. And how do I get started with a small pilot? What do I need to think about? That's where they usually struggle.
And there is also a lot of talk about losing jobs because of artificial intelligence, but probably we will have new jobs. For example, probably we will not work in the call center because some bot or artificial intelligence will answer your question, but you will probably work behind in the background or something like that. And I have some feeling that people are not aware of that. When you are talking with the people, not the managers, but how the workforce reacts to those changes.
Yeah. And obviously there is skepticism out there about how it will change the work life. But I think there's also a very positive note to this. Yes, there will be shift of skill set needed, fully clear. We saw that in the past already. In normal digitization, this was already the case. But imagine, I always try to be very optimistic in this piece. Imagine the very frustrating, repetitive tasks that sometimes you need to do for a certain part of the day. Documenting things, writing up, summarizing. if all for those, I would now, this is a bit provocative, for those ugly parts of the workday, if someone could take that off of you, why not? When you can spend the time for creative tasks, for deeper problem solving, this is what we're made for, right? And this is what gives us also satisfaction as employees. And that's why I'm a bit more optimistic exactly on that element.
But there is a lot of, let's say, scary stories about artificial intelligence. I think it's good to send that message that we will just need new skills.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we will live in Terminator and Skynet and things like that. But
we'll not be all unemployed going forward. That's not the case exactly. There will be a shift in skill sets, yes. And I try to look at it in a very optimistic way, because I imagine tasks that are, repetitive, partially frustrating, and I would say it in a bit of a provocative way, that are sometimes a bit the ugly pieces of our workday. If we could get rid of them, get approval processes, documentation, all the manual work done by a machine, and I'm reviewing, I'm investing time into creative tasks, deeper problem solving. This is usually what we as human beings are also made for problem solving. And that's what gives us another level of satisfaction in our work.
Yes, there's also a question of analytics. You mentioned big data before that, because we can now process a lot of data faster and, let's say, precisely functional than before. So when you look at it like that, where are the benefits for, let's say, auto industry? You have a lot of points, a lot of times you work with auto industry.
Yeah.
We have remote technology.
I mean, the benefits are extremely broad, and just to mention a few. Some people might know about the challenges that the auto industry has been facing over the last years, right? With all the switch of the powertrain going to electric vehicles, which puts them under fundamental change they need to undergo. This one plus the whole software piece they now suddenly need to put into the car. So they need to free up capacity on the one side for this transformation, for this transition into this new age. That's number one. Number two is they are facing heavy, obviously, headwinds from the Chinese challenges, etc. So they need to also look at their cost base. How can they work more effectively? How can they be more efficient in the sort of the standard processes they are doing? That's all where AI can help. But it's also very, very simple. Is where do I buy under the best conditions the best components? What's the most sustainable mix of my vehicle portfolio that I should sell? So those are questions. Buying the right stuff and selling the right pieces is where AI will fundamentally help to achieve those goals.
Yes, I was some 10 years ago, I was on one conference that was organized by Bosch in Berlin, and there was one lady from Formula One, actually, that showed us all data that Formula One is processing. When you are looking one bullet, there is such an amount of data that I was surprised that they are measuring. So, but my question was in this way: infrastructure and regulation. Is that something that Europe is doing well, or you think they need to, let's say, a little bit deregulate some laws and markets for faster implementation of all these benefits of artificial intelligence?
So and that's a point where, if you probably think about the EU Act, the AI Act, I think the European Union, especially also some of the German sort of parties and regulators, are very proud of that, right? Because they're the first ones that put this kind of regulation in place, that shape different standards and so on. I think is yes, it will slow down things probably a bit. And the other side, I think, to put certain guardrails on the development is probably healthy. I cannot judge now if the EU Act is exactly right in all the details that it was done, but to do something in this direction makes totally sense. Others are much more, I would say, free. If I look into the US, which has also downsides to it, but AI, I think in the end, what will AI do with regulation? I think it is not only about how we regulate AI, but also how AI will help us manage regulation, right? It will probably give us, for new regulation, give us hints on where do we have inconsistencies, where do we have duplications. So everything we build out new in regulations, AI will help us to make it leaner, to make it conflict-proof, to make it consistent. In the meantime, on the transition there, probably AI will help us manage the complexity.
Yes.
So yeah, it will try to help us navigate.
I have this feeling that it's easier to have a robot taxi in US than in Europe. It's easier to put some vehicle like that on the road in cities and in the border roads in US than in Europe.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the question. Are we too slow?
Yeah, I think that this is not only a question on AI, but yes, it's true that in general, regulation and those kind of has a certain momentum behind, has a certain is a bit slower than the speed of AI that we see out there evolving. Yes.
Good.
Is that necessarily bad? Not in every case, because you should not be pushed by the technology development. You should also be mindful of how to manage it and how to manage it safely. I think maybe we are a bit on the conservative side here. 100% agree. Is it completely nonsense? Definitely not. So that's a bit the sort of the hybrid answer I can give to that.
Okay, and there is also a question of, let's say, question for the leaders: how to make a functional team in this ecosystem. Yes. Now the teams in companies are probably done in the old way. Let's say it like that, on the old way and in the old ways. But you have artificial intelligence. You have a lot of possibilities for analytics and processing of big data. How, from your opinion, how does good team looks now?
Yes, a good team is an integrated team with different capabilities, with AI, with IT, with traditional IT, with AI capabilities, but also with the business capabilities. Because what we see whenever we see successful companies implementing AI in certain pieces of the process, there was always a cross-functional team in place to make that happen. There was no silo between a business function, be it finance, be it procurement, or something else, and the IT and AI capability. This was, in those successful cases, seamlessly integrated. And that, I believe, is not only a case in the future for projects where you implement things, but how you operate. Because in the future, you will manage your core processes as a cross-functional team. You will be set up along, different process steps, and you will say, I probably need to co-work with AI agents. Therefore, I need in my team people that know what this agent is doing, that can enhance it, that can do troubleshooting, that can judge how this is working. So this is going to be the game changer, to not have silos between the functional teams, but to actually integrate them.
So probably when you are coming to some company in the name of Boston Consulting Groupa and you are scanning the situation, where do you see hotspots you need to change to get more efficient in this landscape?
Yeah. What I see a lot and where I work with is some of the traditional functions that are handling a lot of documents, that are handling a lot of standard processes, procurement, HR, customer care. Those are, I think, the big functions. If I look in those administrative pieces, this is where we see a lot of value and where we see the biggest transformation happening. So it's getting rid of those, repetitive tasks to make it work.
And in that way, is it possible to predict the future?
Everyone that says that, I don't believe. If we think about, obviously, the main stages of AI that everyone's talking about, sort of the narrow intelligence that we're in now, with the sort of the down to the super intelligence or the general intelligence, AGI. This is still a bit down the road. Of course, there's like those fundamental milestones that people believe. How do you judge a model, an AI, if it's now AGI, if it has to reach the stage or not? If it's compatible with human thinking and reasoning or not? How do you judge? It's very difficult to say. Now, there's even Sam Altman, said, what would be the right answer? They are not even sure yet about how to test it. So I think the future to judge it is not possible. The thing is that I always say to many clients, don't try to predict the future. Work on the capabilities to be fast to react to the changes. This is what makes you successful, not in predicting what is in 10 years.
Because I'm asking you this because I have the feeling that changes are happening, let's say, too fast. It's probably not possible to follow them. Technology is going exponentially fast. And in that case, when I'm the manager or leader of some company, let's say bigger or smaller, what can I expect? How to prepare myself on those changes? When somebody like you say, I cannot predict the future. How does that look to somebody, let's say like me, who's a bit older and not so good with technology,
Yeah, maybe two things. Of course, you need to build a certain muscle internally in your organization to judge those changes. So it doesn't need to be that, you need to apply AI in every corner of your company. That's not the point. The point is, do you have the people in your team to be able to judge where it makes the most sense? Do you have an own vision how, also try to enhance yourself, your knowledge about that. You don't need to be a coder, but you need to understand what are general capabilities of this new technology. And then you're a businessman, right? Or a businesswoman. You will be able then to translate what it means for your business. You have had other disruptions likely in the past of technology, not on AI, but on anything else. You were also able to react on that, but they required a skill set, knowing about your product, your production lines, all those kind of things. You knew that. Now is about the disruptions in a different field. So muscle up on this field. That's number one. Number two is also a bit of optimism again. We see a very interesting, unfair, fast follower advantage. So the companies that started now 2023 with the first hype of Gen AI, they spent obviously a lot of money in trying, doing different pilots, seeing what the technology can do. Now in the sort of the age when now agents come up, so autonomous sort of workflows, autonomous actions. If you start now, you have an unfair advantage in actually, maybe you will not catch up fully, but you will be very fast in your learning curve and in the value you extract. So your return of investment now is much better than 2 years ago.
When we are looking at the young people, you probably need workers with the new skills.
Yeah.
And it's education ready enough? Is it preparing enough people for the new jobs? I always ask that. You are the third or fourth guest in this podcast that I ask the same question, because I also have a kid and a lot of us have children in the schools. Yes. Is education something that is crucial in this moment?
Of course, I mean, it would be not true to say education is not relevant. The question is, what is the role of education in this space, right? And there's obviously the capabilities you need to give are not knowing how to code. Yes, that's an element, and knowing what what data can do, some of the fundamentals. But I think education need to shift from the traditional I learn facts towards I challenge, I do problem solving, I question outputs, right? I try to understand implications behind things. So to train our young people on those skills will make them ready for an age of AI, because they will not be tested on, I can do a poem, by heart. But they need to interpret the poem. They need to understand what is the deeper meaning behind what they learn out of it. So the focus in education, in my view, needs to change in that direction, and that will gear them up for the future.
Okay, and for the last question, because our time is limited, as I said on the start, thank you for coming here in that way. Some kind of your advice for the owners and leaders of the company. When we are talking about implementation of the artificial intelligence and models like that, let's say 3 buzzwords, but not artificial intelligence, but what is the 3 things they have to focus on? We said a lot of it during this, but let's put it now into 3 points.
Yeah. Number 1, it's 70% about people and organization to work in the new age. Number 2, think about not the technology, think about what is the value, what is the vision you want to actually create. And third, get started somewhere, but think about a certain area deeply and transform a certain area. Get started there. Don't do small pilots. Think about a certain process, a certain part of your company that you say, this is I gonna do in my AI first world. And let's get started.
You are optimistic. You don't think we are living doom days, when artificial intelligence or super intelligence will say, let's get rid of humans.
Exactly. I'm more optimistic that humanity and society will actually benefit from this a lot. If you think back in, 50 or 100 years, we were working on Saturdays, sometimes even Sundays. Now no one's talking about working on Saturdays anymore in industrials. Maybe we'll talk about, even more quality of life, even more productivity. And I think this is also a benefit of the technology that we should harness.
Tobias, thank you very much for coming on Forbes Business Unplugged. And that's it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.